This is the Odin Pro, and this is the Super Dock. I've had both for about 2 months. I previously had videos about my first impressions of both the device and the dock, and now that I've been using the Odin Pro as my full-time handheld console, I'm ready to dive into the depths of the Odin handheld and the Super Dock accessory and finally let you know my overall thoughts. So this is it. This is the big one. There's a ton to talk about, so get subscribed and let's get started. Let's start with the device specs. The Odin Pro has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 with 8GB of RAM, 128GB of internal storage, and a 6500 mAh battery, and also runs Android 10. The base model has the same Qualcomm Snapdragon 845, but instead it has 4GB of RAM and 64GB of internal storage. It has the same 6500 mAh battery size and also runs Android 10. The Lite model has a different processor called the MediaTek Dimensity D900. It has 4GB of RAM, 64GB of storage, and will have the same 6500 mAh battery, but will actually run a newer version of Android 11. It's hard to say how performance will differ between these two models as they are not yet available, so we'll focus on the Pro model because that's what I have here. It's about the size of a Nintendo Switch Lite, but a bit heavier. It feels like it's the same weight as the regular Nintendo Switch with the Joy-Cons. The ergonomics of the Odin Pro are just a joy. It might be the same size as the Switch Lite, but it's light years more comfortable to hold. The curves on the sides means it fits perfectly in your hands, and playing games for extended periods of time won't result in hand cramps. The screen on the Odin is quite impressive. It has a 6-inch 1080p screen that looks great, and it's pretty bright as well. When it comes to I/O ports, the Odin has just about everything you would need. At the top is a micro HDMI out. There's also a micro SD slot, volume controls, and the power button. At the bottom of the Odin, you'll find a USB-C port and a headphone jack. The buttons and analog sticks are well placed, and nothing feels too far out of reach. The home button on the top right is also positioned well, where it's easy to access and also not in the way or placed where you might accidentally press it. The A, B, X, Y buttons feel nice to press in, and the D-pad is nearly identical to the PlayStation Vita D-pad and feels good. I like how clicky it is. On the back of the device are 2 hotkey buttons, but I haven't actually found any use for them as of yet, and the key mapping software didn't seem to recognize them. At the top, there are stacked trigger buttons for L1, L2, R1, and R2. Although I have not had this issue, there is a known issue with some devices where the triggers don't work. There are repair kits which make it easy to fix yourself, and newly manufactured devices won't have this issue. While I haven't had this issue myself, I think it's important to call out. Defect aside, they feel great to press R1 and L1 and are nice and clicky. The L2, R2 analog triggers are also super nice, and I like that they're analog, so they're pressure sensitive. The Odin takes about the same time to boot up as a regular Android device. On the first setup, you'll have the choice of the stock Android launcher or the Odin launcher. The Odin launcher is primarily what I use. I like that it categorizes your apps and has a focus on the games section. The side panels make it easy to switch between performance modes and other quick relevant settings like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It's also a quick way to check your RAM, clear out the RAM, and toggle the side and analog stick lights. On the bottom right of the Odin launcher is also a quick shortcut to Odin settings. It contains settings for the LED lights, video output, and most importantly, input settings. The most common one that I use is the controller style. This lets you switch between Retro and Xbox, which basically remaps the buttons for you, swapping the A and B and the X and Y. If you do opt for the stock Android launcher, you can get to all of the Odin-specific settings through the Settings app. You can swipe down from the status bar, which will let you quickly switch between performance modes and have fine-tuned control over the fan. There are a few annoyances about the Odin launcher, such as not being able to activate the app switcher and not being able to use the control center, which is when you swipe down from the status bar for the quick settings. Because of these two issues, I do find that I'll have to quit the Odin launcher to use the stock launcher when I want to get into more of the setup of the device, or changing preferences and settings. It's just a much smoother workflow. But once you have everything completely set up to your liking, I really like how simplistic the Odin launcher is, and how it really just brings gaming on the device front and center. And that brings us to emulator performance. One of the most common comments from my first impressions video was that the Snapdragon 845 is not powerful enough. And you're right, it's not the most powerful chip on the market, but the cooling on the Odin allows you to push this processor to the extreme edge, and you really can get quite impressive results. So the Odin plays lower-end games just fine as you'd expect, but it can even play widescreen Super Nintendo. Super Mario World in widescreen is just a joy to play. Maybe now I'll actually play it past the first level. F-Zero in widescreen also looks pretty good too, but can be a little bit glitchy. You don't have to play all Super Nintendo games with widescreen, but it's so cool to see a handheld emulator device capable of this. And the same goes for N64. The Odin has some of the best N64 performance I've seen from one of these emulator handheld devices. And of course in N64 I also opt for the widescreen hacks. It looks fantastic. Upscaling makes it look even better, and you can add in some texture packs, which is also really awesome. PlayStation 1 is no exception here either. Upscaling makes these games look fantastic, and enabling widescreen cheats is awesome. It's funny to think that these games have remastered or remake editions, but there's something about these original graphics in widescreen that just feels so much better to me. And now we can jump into some more advanced systems. GameCube is a little touch and go overall, but has some pretty great performance. I recommend getting the developer build of Dolphin, Dolphin MMJ, and Dolphin MMJR, so you have the most choices. Some games perform better on different versions of Dolphin, and you may have to adjust some settings, but either way, you'll be able to get pretty good performance. For example, I was able to get F-Zero GX running full speed on the developer build of Dolphin with just a few tweaks on the emulation speed. Wii is the same deal since it's the same emulator, and I was able to get Mario Kart running pretty well, and with some tweaks for touchscreen, Super Paper Mario is a joy to play as well. I originally had bad luck getting 3DS games to work, but once I downloaded Citra MMJR, I was able to get Mario Kart 7 running perfectly, even upscaled, and it looks really great on the Odin. Now we can get into the real heavy hitter, PlayStation 2. Kicking the device into high performance mode and putting the emulator into the unstable mode gave me the best results. Not every game ran perfectly, but I found a decent amount to be playable. Spider-Man 2, for example, has a bunch of weird texture issues. It's up to you, of course, if you consider this something that you can look past, but for me, Spider-Man 2 was a no-go. On the Android game side, I actually had an amazingly fun time with Call of Duty Mobile. This is my best experience using the Screen Mapper feature, where you can map areas of the screen to button presses or analog stick movements. It took a bit of toying around with, but once I got the perfect placement and settings, I was killing it in Call of Duty. For game streaming, Xbox Game Pass works really well with the Odin. I was even able to join a party with friends and play Halo. The only downside to this actually was the analog sticks. This is where I felt like the analog sticks didn't have a great range of motion. To do exact movements looking around and aiming, it was really difficult. But other than that, it really was a fun experience. Because I ended up using the Odin so much and taking it with me practically everywhere, making sure I had a good way to carry it around was really important to me. Given the size of the device being nearly identical to the Switch Lite, I bought a bunch of different Switch Lite cases, and while the Odin almost fits some of these cases, it's a really tight fit and I was concerned the trigger buttons had too much stress on them while in the case. This led me to picking up some Nintendo Switch cases and pouches. My favorite one is this pouch. It isn't like super padded or anything, but it fits the Odin really well and doesn't put any stress on the buttons. I'll have a link to this pouch and a few other cases that fit the Odin in the description of this video. Ayn also has available for order what they're calling the Super Dock. I also made a first impressions of the dock, and while I really wanted the dock to grow on me, I have to say I remained disappointed despite it being hypothetically a great add-on for a great handheld device. It really had a ton of potential. The Super Dock is unique in that it's clearly been inspired by Nintendo Switch's dockability, but has some super cool additions. It has 5 USB ports, 2 GameCube controller ports, and 2 N64 controller ports. The Super Dock also has a space for a solid-state drive. But it leaves build quality much to be desired, especially compared to the Odin device itself. The Odin feels like it's made out of a solid, sturdy plastic, but the Super Dock feels quite cheap in comparison. The Odin dock has a transparent plastic piece that sits in front of the dock to help you place the Odin into the dock itself, but it really is quite annoying. Since you need the touchscreen pretty often, it's quite a hassle to have to undock your Odin every time you want to change a setting or a game. You can easily detach the front shield, which greatly improves usability though. But then comes another weird engineering decision. The Odin can get a bit warm, especially when in high performance mode, and when you dock your Odin, part of the cooling is completely blocked by the dock. There is speculation that you could just dock your Odin backwards, but that unfortunately just doesn't work. And for the last of the strange engineering decisions, the GameCube port. It's literally upside down. This means that no Wavebirds, which are the wireless GameCube controllers, will work unless you get creative with propping the dock up, which is just annoying. When it comes to actually using the dock, I can't help but think back to my first impressions video where the dock just simply would not work. I still can't explain this. And while I haven't had the issue reproducible since I put my Switch into the Super Dock, it just gives me such a big pause every time I go to actually use the dock. But that aside, it does work. You place the Odin into the dock and it appears on your TV, and it does look good too. My biggest issue when using the dock is how cumbersome it is for the initial setup. When you want to use external controllers, you need to remap all of your buttons within each emulator app. And then when you switch back to handheld mode, you have to remap all of your controls again. This seems like something that Odin should be able to fix through a software update, but even still, it seems like it might be a clunky solution. Once you get past the button remapping, everything does work fine from there. It's really just the setup that's not fun. But it does really kill momentum if you want to switch between, let's say, N64 or GameCube or PS2. Actually, one of my favorite use cases for the dock was the ability to use my GameCube controllers to play N64 games. While I did have intentions of using the dock pretty extensively, these hangups really just made me not want to use it and just keep everything in handheld mode. The company behind Odin, Ayn, designs, develops, and manufactures this device. It's the first time they've done this, so it should be expected it won't be something you order and receive a week later or something like that. Between COVID outbreaks, chip shortages, and manufacturing mishaps, just about everything that could have gone wrong has. But that shouldn't push you away from considering getting your order in for this device. I would like to truly commend Ayn for being so extremely transparent and forthcoming every step of the process. If you back them on Indiegogo, you'll get updates just about every Friday letting you know where they are with shipping and hardware updates. I can't reiterate enough how impressive this is. I've backed a few Kickstarters in the past, and none have been as transparent as Ayn. This makes it clear they actually care about the device they're shipping out, not looking to just cash out on a successful campaign. But this does mean that if you order one now, it will take some time. Ayn actually has only shipped out the Pro model in black, so we've yet to see the base model, the light model, or other Odin colors. Again, I don't think that this should stray you away from considering getting this device, but it is something that you should keep in mind. And that brings us to the wrap-up. The Ayn Odin is a fantastic retro handheld emulator with a ton of power. It's not the most powerful thing on the market, but the form factor and overall quality is fantastic. I can't praise this device enough, and as of now, it's my go-to. While not necessarily pocketable, it's great to throw into a backpack for a trip. The fact that it can play a huge selection of systems, upscaling them, and even with widescreen hacks, it's been the best experience of these retro games I've found so far. While I think the Odin Pro is a near-perfect device, I can't say I feel quite the same way about the Super Dock accessory. The dock sports weird engineering decisions, and the build quality is questionable. With these clear hangups, I wouldn't recommend the dock, but I do hope that Ayn continues iterating on their hardware, and maybe one day we'll see an improved, updated dock. I can't wait to see Ayn successfully ship out the remaining backers and get this device into the hands of everyone who was so excited to use it. I also think that if they learn from this first generation model, the second generation of their Odin handhelds could be even more amazing. So what do you think? Did you back the Odin through Indiegogo? Are you waiting for the device to be more readily available? What do you think of the dock? Let me know in the comments. I've also been considering making another video showing my perfect Odin setup, including how to get widescreen SNES games up and running. So let me know if that's something you would like to see. Feel free to like this video if you enjoyed it, get subscribed so you don't miss out on future videos, and thanks for watching.